The Miami Dolphins cruised past the New England Patriots on Sunday 34-15, with Tua Tagovailoa lighting up the field for 317 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Gerard Mayo, in true Patriot fashion, keyed in on Tyreek, which meant that Jalen Waddle had to step up and be electrifying. And electrifying he was, snagging 144 receiving yards and a touchdown. It was a hell of a game. I think it was his best of the season so far. Miami's defense also chipped in, forcing key turnovers and stifling New England's rookie quarterback Drake May. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Beating a rebuilding Patriots squad or a hapless Raiders team is one thing. Competing with the NFL's elite is another. Sure, the Dolphins looked dominant, but doesn't it always feel like they're the kid in the pickup game who dominates until the high school varsity team shows up? I mean, haven't we seen this before? Big stats against lesser teams, only to falter when the stakes are higher? Are they ready to tussle with the AFC heavyweights, like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, or even the Bengals or Chargers? I mean, call me skeptical, but I'm holding off on booking my Super Bowl tickets. Now, as Miami prepares for their Thanksgiving night clash against the Green Bay Packers, I've got a friend who lives there, by the way. He had invited me to go, but, getting up to Green Bay at this time of year and all that stuff is just a mess. But, we might look into something later. Irrelevant. We'll get another chance to evaluate him. Green Bay's Jordan Love and the Packers have been surprisingly feisty this season, and the short week will test the Dolphins' mettle. Can Miami serve up a Turkey Day statement win? Or will they leave us with more questions than answers? Let's hope they bring more than stuffing and cranberry sauce to Lambeau Field. But you know something? The whole conversation really gets me thinking. It reminds me of, so in my off time when I'm not doing this, you might not know this about me, but I'm also an editor on the Fish Tank Tales from the Deep podcast. Oh, I know. And one of the things that I've noticed is when we do episodes with guys who played with Dan Marino, it's so interesting because a lot of them have very similar things to say about him. You hear a lot about how superhuman he was and his talents and abilities, but one thing in particular that has floated around a few times that I thought was worth mentioning here because it reminds me of something that we're seeing today. A lot of his former teammates talk about the vibe that Dan Marino had, the aura that he walked around with. He was described as looking like he came walking right off the beach and started throwing touchdown passes. And I believe that is what Tua has in common with Dan. He has that cool, laid back, he is a tropical quarterback. Tua looks the part. He looks like that. Looks like he came walking in off the beach, just won a game of beach volleyball, and now he's going to throw touchdown passes. That's what Tua looks like, and it's how he acts. He's from Hawaii, I don't blame him. But I believe that a lot of fans see that and they mistake it for thinking that he's just like Danny, but he's not. He might have some things in common with Danny, but he's not Danny. And we need to accept that. We as Dolphin fans have for too long allowed ourselves to accept a spot on the merry-go-round of mediocrity because we're not willing to acknowledge when it's simply not good enough. And something in this equation is not working, guys. All right, we got the quarterback, we thought. We got the head coach, we thought. Why isn't it working? But again, even having those two things doesn't guarantee success. We should know better than anyone. We had the coach and the quarterback before, Dan Marino and Don Shula. We didn't win. At least not the Super Bowl. We made it to one, but we never made it back. And we haven't been back since. And so we now need to take time to analyze what we're dealing with now. And spare me the talk about the offensive line, guys. I'm tired of hearing about the offensive line. The offensive line has been a reoccurring thorn in our side for the last 3 decades. All right? And nothing that we have done, and we have spent early picks. We've spent a first overall pick on the line. We have done free agency. We have tried everything. We have not been able to assemble a solid line. One time in my life have we actually had one that was going the distance, at least for an extended period of time. And guess what? It couldn't last an entire season. That was the 2016 team. You remember? We had Mike Pouncey and all them. We couldn't sustain it because the line couldn't stay healthy. So spare me that. Besides, you're going to bring that up in a world where Joe Burrow led the Bengals to a Super Bowl with Swiss cheese as an offensive line? There wasn't nothing in front of him but turnstiles leading to the damn New York subway. And he still made it happen. So I don't want to hear that excuse anymore. Something in this equation's not working, and it's either the quarterback or the coach. And you know what? I also have to point out, we have to take a moment to address this real quick. Have we overvalued Mike McDaniel? Because don't get me wrong, yes, I've seen it. We've put up incredible numbers with Mike McDaniel and Tua together. However, have you noticed that when Tua's not in the game, the offense is broken. It doesn't work. And before you get off to say, the offense was built for Tua, that doesn't mean that nobody else should be able to make it go. Okay, if that is the system that you built, then your quarterback better be indestructible. And since we know ours is not, you need an offense that is accessible. Okay, and especially coming from that coaching tree, we know better. We should know better. Not when we've watched our head coaches' peers win games with all kinds of quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan's won games with various quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo's and Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard's and Brock Purdy now. In fact, that one season in particular, he won a game with a combination of C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins. We had never heard of Nick Mullins before. Okay, we've watched Sean McVay win games with all kinds of quarterbacks. Okay, they've had, what was that guy? John Wolford. And there was this other dude whose name I can't quite recall now. They've had guys cycle all through there. They had Jared Goff, who took them to a Super Bowl. Guess what? They determined he was not good enough and traded him for Matt Stafford, who won them that Super Bowl. But beyond that, I'm not too old to remember when Baker Mayfield signed with the Rams on a Tuesday and led a game-winning drive for them that Thursday. Okay? There was a time when he was available. There was a time early this year Russell Wilson was available. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, if you have an offense that is broken, if one of two players is not in it, and that being Tua and or Tyreek Hill, because we've seen that now. Tua struggles to move the ball downfield if Tyreek is not there. So now that we've seen it, we need to acknowledge somebody here is the problem. And I'm sorry, if Mike McDaniel cannot put together a functioning offense with a backup quarterback, how good is he really? You know, Doug Peterson, well, bless his heart, he's doing an awful job right now in Jacksonville, but when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, he led the Eagles through the playoffs to a Super Bowl victory over Tom Brady's Patriots with his backup quarterback. Okay? There is no excuse for us to have a solid backup. Why is Skylar Thompson even on the roster anymore? Especially when last year you made it abundantly clear by signing Mike White that he was not good enough. My only hope is that we can somehow get this corrected, but I don't see that happening anytime soon because we are masters at making the wrong decision.